The mining station orbiting Kepler 442b had seen better days. Rust ate at the outer hull like a slow disease, and the artificial gravity generators hummed with the strain of decades of continuous operation. James Martinez, 73 years, old with hands weathered by a lifetime of hard work, made his daily rounds through the abandoned sections of the station with the methodical patience that had kept him alive through 3 wars and countless mining accidents. It was during one of these rounds 6 months ago that he had found the creature. The thing had been no bigger than a house cat, curled up in the wreckage of what used to be Storage Bay 7. Its scales shimmered with an opalescent blue-green that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal in the dim emergency lighting. Most striking were its eyes, ancient amber orbs that seemed far too knowing for something so small and helpless. James had seen enough in his 7 decades to recognize intelligence when he saw it, regardless of the species. The creature was clearly young, clearly starving, and clearly afraid. Without hesitation, he had scooped it up in his work jacket and carried it back to his quarters. What the hell is that thing? Lisa Chen, the station's chief engineer and James's closest friend, had asked when she'd come by for their weekly chess game and found him hand-feeding the creature protein paste. "Don't know," James had replied, watching as the little being's eyes followed his every movement. "But it's smart. Look at those eyes, Lisa. There's someone home in there." Lisa, 35 and pragmatic to her core, had initially been skeptical. The outer rim was full of strange creatures, and most of them were dangerous. But as weeks turned to months, even she had to admit there was something special about James's find. The creature, which James had taken to calling Spark due to the way its scales occasionally flickered with bioluminescent patterns, grew rapidly under his care. What had once been the size of a cat was now closer to a medium dog, with wing membranes that were finally developing enough structure to suggest it might one day fly. Its intelligence became more apparent each day. It learned to open doors, to operate basic controls, and most remarkably, it began to understand human speech. "It's a baby dragon," Lisa had said one evening as they watched Spark carefully manipulate a puzzle box James had crafted from spare parts. "I mean, I know how that sounds, but look at it. The wings, the scales, the intelligence, what else could it be?" James had nodded thoughtfully. In his years traveling the galaxy, he had encountered dozens of species, but nothing quite like Spark. The creature's behavior suggested not just intelligence, but a deeply emotional nature. It seemed to understand when James was tired or sad, often curling up against him with a soft, harmonious humming that somehow made everything feel better. Tonight was different, though. Tonight, James carried something special in his weathered hands as he made his way to his quarters where Spark waited. For weeks, he had been working on a project in secret, using skills he hadn't employed since his younger days as a communications technician. The device in his hands was crude by modern standards, cobbled together from salvaged components, old quantum resonators, and a translation matrix he'd pulled from a decommissioned diplomatic shuttle. He found Spark where he always did in the evenings, perched by the small viewport that looked out at the swirling storms of the gas giant below. The dragon-like creature had grown to about the size of a large retriever, its scales now showing complex patterns of silver and blue that seemed to shift with its moods. "Hey there, Spark," James said softly, settling into his favorite chair. "I've got something for you." Spark turned, those ancient amber eyes focusing on the device with curious intensity. James activated the machine, and immediately the air filled with a low, harmonious humming, not unlike the sound Spark made when content, but somehow more complex, more structured. The effect was immediate and profound. Spark's entire body went rigid, scales flaring to brilliant gold as the creature's eyes widened. Then slowly Spark began to respond, not with the simple hums and chirps James had grown accustomed to, but with complex melodic phrases that the translation device began to interpret. "Father, friend," came the synthesized voice from the device, though it carried undertones the human language couldn't fully capture. You give me words? You give me voice song to speak as the tall ones speak?" James felt tears prick at his eyes. In 6 months of care and companionship, he had never imagined that Spark thought of him as family. "Yes, little one. I thought you might have things to say." What came next nearly broke the old miner's heart. Spark's scaled form began to tremble, and what could only be tears, crystalline drops that caught the light like tiny prisms, began to fall from those ancient eyes. I am a lone song in the vast dark," Spark sang through the device, the words carrying a weight of loneliness that transcended species. "My nestkin, my blood harmony, all gone to the deep sleep when the starfire came. I thought I would sing alone until my scales went cold." James reached out slowly, and Spark immediately pressed into his touch, the way he had since. He was small enough to fit in the old man's cupped hands. "But Father Friend found Lost Song 1, Spark continued, voice gaining strength. "Father Friend gave food warmth, gave safety nest, gave love without words. And now Father Friend gives voice gift, so Lost Song 1 can sing gratitude, joy. That has no words in the small sounds." Lisa, who had been quietly watching from the doorway, stepped forward with tears streaming down her face. "James," she whispered, "do you realize what this is? This might be the last of its species, and it thinks of you as family." James finished, understanding flooding through him. He looked down at Spark, this magnificent, intelligent being, who had somehow survived the death of its world and its people. "We're your family now, Spark, for as long as you want us." The dragon's scales flared in patterns of gold and silver that needed no translation device to understand. In the vast loneliness of space among the ruins of a dying mining station, 3 souls from different worlds had found something precious and rare. A family bound not by blood or species, but by love, compassion, and the uniquely human gift of caring for those who needed it most. Outside the viewport, the storms of the gas giant continued their eternal dance, but inside the small quarters, there was only warmth, belonging, and the sound of a young dragon learning that sometimes, against all odds, love finds a way to bridge any gap, even between the stars.